We just received huge breaking news. Nebraska has fired first-year defensive coordinator John Butler effective immediately. He is no longer with the program. So in today's video, I'm going to give you my instant reaction. Why did this happen? What's been going on behind the scenes leading up to this moment? Who are we going to hire as his replacement? Are more firings happening? What does this mean for the transfer portal going forward? And everything else you need to know. So really quick, this is a big-time instant reaction video. John Butler is no longer employed. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Listen, this is the only channel on Nebraska YouTube that posts daily content, talking breaking news just like this, talking transfer portal, talking coaching carousel. If you want to stay in tune with the Huskers this offseason, it's no burn. Take 2 seconds, help us hit 15,000, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, we have a lot to talk about. It was just reported that Nebraska has fired first-year defensive coordinator John Butler effective immediately. This was Matt Rhule's decision. He felt like the defense was not good enough this year, and he decided that, John Butler, while he's a promising secondary coach, the secondary is one of the best in America, he's not getting the job done, and we need to go get the best defensive coordinator money can buy, and that is not John Butler. So right off the bat, you know what? I'm impressed with Matt Rhule because he made a terrible hire last offseason. Everybody knew it at the time where, we brought in John Butler as a secondary coach. We made him the defensive coordinator. He's never been defensive coordinator before. He's won one time with Penn State a decade ago. He was not very good. He got fired after one season. And John Butler, yeah, he was, had a really good career in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills, with the Texans. Some coaches are only meant to be secondary coaches. They're not meant to be defensive coordinators. And it's clear every single week when Nebraska got on the football field. We gave 40 points to Iowa for crying out loud, but against Iowa, against Minnesota, against Penn State, we were not prepared. We were not prepared, and from an X and O standpoint, we weren't up to par either. So that falls on John Butler. That falls on Dane as well. That falls on Matt Rhule. So the first thing I'm proud of Matt Rhule for doing, while he has made some terrible hires since he got to Nebraska, not only with John Butler, with some of these positional coaches as well, with Marcus Satterfield, I'm impressed that he's at least recognizing that and moving on quickly. Okay, because he could have, employed John Butler for an extra 2 years, extra 3 years, and it wouldn't have worked out, and then fired him after that. But he said, you know what? It's pretty clear this is not a good decision. I'm going to move on from him and literally get the best defensive coordinator money can buy, which is exactly what we need. Okay, we can't get these type of guys anymore. We can't get guys with Matt Rhule connections, NFL connections. No, we need coaches who have 10, 20 years of experience, who are veterans, who are 50, 60 years old, who are still at the top of their game, who are great recruiters. John Butler never recruited. Like, I talk to these recruits on the daily. None of those guys have a good relationship with John Butler because he doesn't talk to them, right? He doesn't get involved with recruiting. Okay, we need a defensive coordinator who can recruit. We need a defensive coordinator who's energetic. And you know what? Sometimes it's all about the press conferences even. Okay, when you listen to Dana Holgerson's press conferences, it's pretty clear he knows what he's talking about, even though the offense was not very good this year. And when Matt Rhule talks his press conferences, it's pretty clear he knows what he's talking about. But when you would listen to John Butler, or even Marcus Satterfield in the past, he has no idea what he's talking about. He can't explain the basics. And I remember listening to John Butler every single week, and this defensive line was horrific. It's not showing any improvement. It's not getting better. We're not making adjustments. And John Butler would avoid it. Basically, he wouldn't talk about it. And when he would talk about it, he'd say, yeah, we need the D-line to be better. Well, we already know that. Tell us something specific. So, again, clearly he was in over his head. Again, terrible hire to begin with, but I'm impressed that Matt Rhule did something about it. Giving up 40 points to Iowa is completely unacceptable. Doing what we did against Michigan, against Penn State, against Minnesota, it's unacceptable. Having all these close games against Michigan State, UCLA, Northwestern, it was unacceptable. And I'll say this, I am surprised this happened. I do expect more firings to happen, I do, okay, because Matt Rhule, there's nobody more mad about this season than Matt Rhule. Okay, I know the fan base is mad right now. But Matt Rhule genuinely believed, and again, he was telling the staff this all summer long. Trust me when I say that. He was telling the players this all summer long. He believed they would make the college football playoffs this year. He believed they would win 10 games. He knew how easy the schedule was. And I told you guys just 2 days ago, after the season, you might think you're mad, but Matt Rhule is more mad because he actually had high expectations. He wasn't lying to everybody. He believed it. And Matt Rhule understands, and I'll give him credit, he understands he hasn't been a good enough coach. So he's also going to take a look in the mirror and improve what he can do, right? The in-game adjustments, the in-game game planning, again, the recruiting, right, is going on a downward turn. But he also knows that, hey, this staff's not good enough. And that's partly his fault, and that's just because of these guys aren't living up to expectations either. So John Butler, again, I wish him the best of luck, right? Again, when coaches get fired, it's never personal. It's never personal. This is a business, however, and this is football, and you're getting paid literally millions of dollars. It's not the hardest job in the world, right? It is a hard job, don't get me wrong, but you're developing, you're recruiting, and you're game playing. That's really about it. Okay, and it's a public job. If you don't want to be publicly criticized, you shouldn't have gotten any coaching. And John Butler's one of those guys where he was criticized all year long. Sometimes coaches adjust, they hear that, and they get better. He, if anything, got worse. The defense got worse as the season progressed. Okay. And again, from an X-No standpoint, he was terrific. And again, the secondary was decent this year. Was top 5 in America. They shut down Mekhi Lemon, the #1 wide receiver in the country. He's going to go first round in the NFL draft. They shut down Ives. So I actually thought the secondary was good, but that's not a surprise, right? He's a secondary coach, supposed to be good. But the linebacker play was horrific. Again, the adjustments are horrific. The defensive line is the worst in the history of the program. That's thanks to Terry Brain and John Butler. The blitz packages, the #1 thing that I judge defensive coordinators on is their blitz packages. Okay, if you can't free up an open linebacker or a DB or an edge rusher, get to the quarterback unprotected, right? And that's really half of your job is blitz concepts, blitz packages. If you can't even get that correctly and you can't get to the quarterback, you're not doing anything. And we would never get to the quarterback ever. Even when we blitz 6 when we could get to the quarterback because every single one of our guys blitzing, we picked up by an offensive lineman or a running back. And that's something that Tony White did very well. He had great blitz concepts. Even Eric Shenander had pretty decent blitz concepts. John Butler's were the worst I've ever seen. Worst. I mean, they were awful. They were awful. The development was awful. Okay, there were a lot of good players who we felt great about returning this year. Like, I'll name some names. Vince Javers, what step did he take forward, right? And I don't think he took a step forward at all. You know, you can say Marcus Buford didn't take a step forward. Malcolm Hartzog really didn't take a step forward, even though we barely saw him. You know, the entire defensive line didn't take a step forward. Deshaun McCullough got here with all these expectations, future NFLer, this, that, and third. What did he do this year? Okay, so I'm not saying Tony White was the best defensive coordinator in the world, but Tony White was better than John Butler. No question about it. Tony White might be fired from Florida State, and he's going to go get another defensive coordinator job. John Butler's not going to ever get a defensive coordinator job again after this year because it was that much of a failure. It was a complete and utter failure. So again, I wish him the best of luck. But more filings are happening, and Matt Rhule is going to have the stones to do this. You better believe. I told you guys all week, expect things to happen on Monday. Not later in the week, Monday. And look what happened. And more's coming. Now, I will say this. People will ask, okay, what does this mean for Dana? Because I think the offense was actually worse than the defense this year. I truly do. The offense was worse. And everybody kind of hides the fact they're like, oh, well, we love Dana. Dane's going to figure it out because Dana has experience. I understand all that. But and I told you guys this. Yesterday, I was talking about this on the channel. I said, if they fire John Butler, I mean, I have to answer some questions about Dana. Because you can't really keep Dana and get rid of John. Because Dana was worse than John Butler. The offense could not move the football even when Dillon was healthy. We threw 3 interceptions versus Maryland. We had no vertical passing attack. The air raid that was supposed to be was a full-on running attack going into October. So people will naturally say, okay, does this mean Dana's gone? I'll tell you right now, and again, trust me when I say this. Trust me when I say this because, okay, you already know Dana's not being fired. He will stay next year. It's a done deal. It's a done deal. Dana will be here, and you can have any type of opinion toward that. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but trust me when I tell you Dana's going to be here next year. Trust me when I tell you that Rob Dvorak's going to be next year, that Addison Williams is probably going to be here next year. But that doesn't mean some other guys ain't going to be fired. And you kind of already know who those guys are going to be. And I expect that to be announced potentially today, potentially tomorrow, potentially later this week. But again, more things are going to happen today. You better believe that. And Matt Rhule's fed up. He's tired of it. And you know he's going to attack the portal. So here's now what I ask. Matt Rhule did a gutsy decision. And I'm proud of him for it. He got rid of John Butler. But now, this is where the real work begins. This defensive coordinator hire will probably make or break your entire career, Matt Rhule. It really will. Okay, you bring in another defensive coordinator just like John Butler who has no experience, who's just a secondary coach, who doesn't know how to recruit, doesn't know how to game plan. You bring in another guy like him, which you have a track record of doing. You have a track record of hiring bad coaches. It will ruin your career. It will, with our schedule next year. However, if you take your emotions out of it, you take your track record out of it, the guys that you previously coached with out of it, and you say, you know what, we're just going to find the best candidate. And also, well, I want to make this very clear, don't hire somebody just because they have Nebraska connections. Everybody's going to draw to that. They're going to be like, well, this guy was formerly at Nebraska. This guy was here with Bo Pelini. This guy was here with Frank Solich. This guy. We're not doing that. Okay, it'd be nice if they had Nebraska connections. That's cool. I'm not saying like get all of those guys out of the field, but don't let that be the #1 reason you hired them. Hire somebody based on their merit, based on their experience, and make sure they check every single box. They are a good recruiter. They are energetic. They're high upside. I don't want, again, a 70-year-old who's about to retire. I prefer a veteran, don't get me wrong, but I'd prefer a veteran who has aspiration of being a head coach. I would, because that means they're striving to be better every single day. Guys like Dana's, I don't know if he's going to be a head coach again, so you could say he's complacent. But the reason why I like these, 50, 60-year-olds who want to be coaches is because they're going to do whatever it takes to get the head coaching job. And coordinators are going to leave. That's why Nick Saban will always get those type of guys. Nick Saban really never hired these veteran coordinators who are 70 years old. Why? Because, again, they're complacent. He would hire these up-and-comers who would then get head coaching jobs, and then he'd find their replacement, and then so on. So this has got to be a full-on search. Don't rush it. I expect it to take weeks. And let's go get the best defense coordinator money can buy. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts down below about everything. We will be going live right now on the channel about 12:30. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go grad, go Met Rule, and I'll see you in the next one.